welcome to tonight's Tailgate. We're going to be wrapping up week 0 and looking ahead to this 2023 season for week 1. All right, welcome back to the Tailgate. Thank you again. I'm Michael, your host. You can find me at my Instagram handle, which is right below. Should be showing up somewhere over here. Tonight, I've got joining me, just like last week and the week before, I've got Luke and Dennis.
Hey, I'm Luke. Again, Instagram right below.
I'm Dennis. You can find my handles down here below.
Cool. Before we get started tonight, to really get into just the overviews and the highlights from this past weekend and looking ahead, just super excited about where this season's going to go. I just want to do a quick shout out to our sponsor tonight, which is Explore Tours. Again, if you are living in the Middle Tennessee area and you are looking for an educational or adventure tour just to get to know your area more, or if you're touring here or just you're visiting or whatnot, go and check it out at exploretours.com and book your tour today. All right, so we had a lot of fun this past weekend, just like getting back into the spirit of football.
Yeah, if nothing else, we might not have had the best games all around, but
Yeah.
just getting back into football mode, being able to, put the kids to bed and sit there and watch some football at night. It was a lot of fun.
I mean, I watched Hawaii and Vanderbilt. I had a blast.
I mean, that's fair. Hawaii Vanderbilt actually turned out to be a pretty good
game.
Good game, yeah. But there were some interesting calls that were made this past weekend, and Luke, you made some notes of those.
I did. So I've got a couple here, and
Okay.
I'm going to go a couple different ways with this bad call thing. So one of the things I've seen a lot of people talking about. Now, listen, I love Caleb Williams.
Mm-hmm.
I think he's a great quarterback. I think he does a lot of amazing things for USC, and I think regardless, he's going to be a Heisman contender. He looks great. He had a play this week that has garnered a lot of national attention.
That he did.
Where he dropped a football off the snap, which, not his best moment.
No.
But then it turned into what everybody is highlighting as this amazing play, 76-yard touchdown, I believe it was.
Yeah, it was crazy long.
But what they failed to mention was that the running back had a nice little hold on that San Jose State defender that gave him that little split second to get that play off. So now listen, they're going to not call some of those. They're going to miss some of those.
Sure.
I just feel like in a game that was going so well for San Jose State at the time, San Jose State had a little bit of momentum going.
Mm-hmm.
They just scored a touchdown. To miss something that was that blatant. I mean, when they showed the replay, you literally see the running back grab and the defender go backwards a second. That split second was all he needed to get that pass down. So for my worst officiating call this week, it's got to be not calling that hold.
Yeah, on the biggest play of the weekend.
On the biggest play of the weekend.
Yeah, I get that. I mean, I saw multiple times during the USC game their linemen like holding San Jose State, like just multiple different times, and I was like, what is going on? Like, I mean, there was like very few penalties called in that game, and I don't know if they were just like, well, let's just let them play, which I'm fine with that to some degree, but there are rules for a reason, and
it's a little different when you could call a hold on every play,
sure,
right? A hold on every play, but when it's going to happen, and they're going to be there. But that was so blatant.
Yep.
The guy was on his way to Caleb Williams. So, again, it's. I get that there's going to be holds. I get that it's going to happen. They're going to miss calls. But for it to be that blatant, that's where I kind of had the issue with it.
Yeah. What do you think, Dennis, as a defensive guy?
Don't get me wrong. I feel like it was pretty evident. Part of me feels like even though it could have been a half a second of a different notice, I don't think it would have really changed much. Because Caleb Williams does have a quick release where I feel like he would have got the ball away. He just would have hit it in the process, but I feel like the throw still would have been made.
Yeah. And would it have changed the outcome of the game?
Maybe maybe not. Yeah.
Probably not.
Yeah. They probably would have scored 35 points, don't get me wrong.
Right.
But definitely I feel like the overall outcome is just USC's offense too powerful, their defense non-existent.
Right.
It's just the way it goes.
Yeah. So
that's my worst officiating call. Now I kind of want to go to the playing side. So
Yeah.
some coaching. Maybe not snafus, some things that one of the things I didn't really agree with. And that's going to go to Mr. Brian Newberry. So this was his first game with the Navy midshipmen. They were already a 21-point underdog, 20 and a half, I think it was. And they're just getting their rear ends handed to them. They're not looking very good. And then they go on a 56-yard, 14-play, 8-minute drive.
Yeah, I was watching that.
It was an amazing drive, just very concise. They were doing everything they needed to, making the right call, doing the right things. There's 1 minute and 55 seconds to go. And he says, you know what? Let's go for a field goal.
Yeah.
It's 4th and 5. Let's kick the field goal. Now, listen, you're down 10, you're down 14. Okay, I can see this.
Yeah.
But as a 21-point underdog, when you're on the only drive that they had that game, the best drive that they had that game.
To change momentum. They could have changed momentum.
They're getting the ball at half.
Yep.
You go for that touchdown. You give your guys that satisfaction of like, hey, it's 4th and 5.
Yep.
You've been doing good. I believe in you. Best case scenario, you get a first down.
Yep.
You waste a little bit more time. From 1 minute 55, maybe it gets down to a minute. Maybe it gets down to 30 seconds. You get a little closer for your kicker who ends up missing that field goal. But you get a little closer. Maybe you get 3. Maybe you get 7. Who knows? Worst case scenario, I think, is what happened.
Yep.
You kick a field goal.
And you shank it.
You miss it. And then Notre Dame goes on a 9-play, 80-yard drive in 1 minute and 42.
Yep.
And instead of being up by the 3 touchdowns they were, maybe 2, maybe 17 points, whatever it may be, now they're down by 4 touchdowns.
Yep.
So I looked at that and I just kind of went, just go for it.
Yeah.
Just take the chance and do what you need to do to get that touchdown.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, totally.
Go ahead.
I never understood, like, when you're that far down, like a coach call that's just like, let's just put safe points on the board. I'm like, no, you don't need to play safe at that point. You're already the major underdog. You're already setting yourself up for failure by just playing that safe. So just push through that, and if you miss, you miss. If you don't get that touchdown, you don't get it. You don't get the first down, you don't get it. Whatever. At least you went big and went home broke.
No, I mean, don't get me wrong. I actually agree with you guys entirely. I think probably it has a little bit more to the fact that it was his debut game. Do you really want to be shut out entirely on your debut game?
But that field goal still didn't net them any points.
Would you rather have 3 points or 0?
I would say 0 if I went for touchdowns the entire time.
I mean,
And to me, and again, we've talked about this.
Yeah.
I never coached. I never really even played. But I would much rather go down swinging and it be.
I mean, either way, you're going to be swinging. Like, you're still playing the game. Like, it's just like you're going to get knocked the heck down, just crazy down the scale. I just feel like it was more just like, if I want a big 0 on my scoreboard, my very first game,
I get
or
that.
the debut. Like, don't get me wrong, I generally don't agree. I would have gone for it to myself, but it was just one of those things where I'm like,
because you do have to worry about those Navy fans. They're very
they're
committed. They're lifelong.
Bring us a national championship, or you're gone.
Yeah. Last one, what was like a 1942, like something like that.
And that they weren't even playing here. They were in Japan.
1946. My bad.
Oh, okay. They came back. Just made the way back from Iwo Jima.
I don't know where we went there.
I don't know either.
A little history lesson for everyone. Then.
Yeah, no, that's not an accurate history lesson. So do not take that as a history lesson.
It can be. If you see it on the internet, it must be true.
Listen, yeah, well, that's true. Yeah, that's how the internet works. But that was not the only thing that happened this past weekend. Dennis, you witnessed. I think was it you that sent it to us in the chat about the biggest hit that you saw this past weekend?
Oh yeah, my favorite hit actually. It was just, I think the San Diego State quarterback. Actually, it's one of my hometown teams. Their quarterback. I'm trying to remember his name right now. I'm actually kind of forgetting his name right now, but he threw one of the best passes I saw all last weekend.
Yeah, it was a great pass.
It could not. I was really disappointed that it was incomplete.
Yeah.
I always felt like if you touch the ball, you have to catch it.
Yeah.
I don't care what side of the ball you are on, what uniform you're wearing. If it's black and white, if it hits you in the head, you should catch that. So I blame the ref here. The ref was literally, you see the ball coming. Why didn't you catch it? It went directly to his dome, bounced off, and everybody's like, is he okay? Of course he's okay. He didn't catch anything. He wasn't going to get hit by anything else. It's like, bro, you missed it. That was the biggest hit, and you missed it. That was your biggest chance.
Yep.
You can't even be hit by the players.
No.
He's
was
untouchable. Literally.
Yeah. Like,
Nothing like unison.
he was like Caleb Williams. Yeah. He was like Caleb Williams in that hole. He was not going to get touched.
Right.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, no, the biggest hit, that, I mean, like that, when you sent us that video, I was like laughing so hard.
Yeah.
Like it was just such a funny, like, just funny week 0 highlight. Just and when we're looking at, like, you know, what was going to be the biggest hit of the weekend, you know, with, you know, blockbusters like Vanderbilt and Hawaii and Notre Dame and Navy.
I mean, the biggest probably hit in that one was probably the hurricane, to be honest.
Well, was that is that what caused the delay? Because I thought it was just rain.
I mean, they're coming from the Pacific. How I had to come a little bit sooner.
Well, they don't have hurricanes in the Pacific.
Yeah, they do.
No, those are tsunamis, bro.
No, they got hurricanes too, man.
There's a lot too much like history and
There's so
all
many
this
weird
going on for me.
Pacific things going on. They're specifically Pacific. Yeah, I mean, I guess they are. Yeah, I don't whatever. But the but that definitely was one of the biggest hit highlights for sure. Just it was so funny. But before we leave this past weekend and before we get into like this upcoming week and stuff like that, just looking at just what, you know, week 1's got in store for us, which I'm super excited about. You had one more thing that you wanted to talk about. Well, really
Yeah.
2 things, but
Well, it's 2 different teams, and we've already mentioned them, but this is kind of like my burst your bubble moments here. And listen, this is like we said, week 0. You know, this is the first, really probably the first time these teams are actually like suiting up and really going 100%, trying to you know, play their game and do what they need to do. So I don't want to take too much away from these you know, kids that are out there playing. They're doing their best. They're going that way. But this might be a little bit more directed to their fans.
fair enough.
So this is for your USC and for your Notre Dame fans. Now listen, you guys both have great quarterbacks. You got no. So we'll start with USC. Okay. So USC, like, the team that you played was significantly inferior. Okay. Now some people are going to argue that San Jose State's offense was ranked number 59 in points per game and number 72 in yards per game last year.
Pretty impressive.
And that their defense was number 27 in opponents' points per game and number 23 in yards per game. But that was against the tiny bit less scary Mountain West Conference.
Whoa.
So
That could become the next Pac-12, so be careful.
Well, yeah, it might be coming up into the Power 5 there with Pac-12 being decimated. Their defense was shaky.
Yeah.
At best.
Yeah.
There were plays that they just looked confused, like they didn't know where they needed to be. They looked unprepared at times, at least on the defensive side of the ball. Your offense looked okay, but again, there's going to be a lot of questions moving forward, especially when you get into some of the conference play and then some of the other teams that they're going to be playing. So they still have a lot to prove in my mind. So I don't want to burst your bubble, but let's like reel it in a little bit. Understand that you didn't play great against a less, you know, an inferior team. And so let's just move on to the next week and see what we can do. This week will be a little bit tougher matchup against Samford. So
At least it's, you know, inside the
it's
actual conference.
In conference.
Yeah,
So,
it's in
but we'll
conference.
see. Now for Notre Dame, okay, listen, you covered the 20.5-point spread. You almost doubled that. Your transfer quarterback, Sam Hartman, he looks and he talks and he looks the part, right? He's looking really good to play, really good. He even looked good after an intercontinental trip across, you know,
True.
the Pacific. I don't know.
the Atlantic.
I'm pretty sure they went across the Atlantic that
Whichever
time.
one. I
They
don't
went
know.
across the Midway.
If they went the Pacific route, that's
Well,
a
that
very interesting Navy route
I don't
there.
know my history. Either way, he went across an ocean.
That's
right,
geography there,
to play.
He doesn't know his subjects,
Listen.
Michael.
Listen, I'm not smart, but I can lift heavy things. Okay.
Hey, fair enough. You
So
know what?
let's
That's all-
just move
He
on.
just
Anyway.
knows what's a blow. That's
Anyways,
it.
it was a long trip.
It was a long trip. So, just like I said about USC, you played Navy.
Yeah.
They're ranked 129th offensively, 56th defensively, and again, American Athletic Conference, right?
Yeah.
What's going to happen when you play Ohio State, What's going to happen when you play Clemson? And even when Notre Dame and USC meet.
True.
It's gonna be a
What's gonna
high-scoring
happen?
game.
So again, I think
With no defenses.
right.
Yeah.
I think that both quarterbacks looked great. I think that both teams have a lot of good things that they can build on. But for all of these people who looked at this week 0, 8 games being played or however many were being played, they shouldn't be getting the attention that they have been.
No, and I get like some people are just really like they're wanting to hype up week 0 just because it's not as flashy as week 1.
Right.
But week 1 has significantly more games in it that are going to define kind of the start of the season. And we're going to get into those in a second. But just real quick before we just head into some of that, did you guys hear about like how much Dublin made over the weekend just from that one game?
No, how much?
$150 million.
Ooh, jeez.
Yeah,
That's a lot of Guinness.
It was a lot of Guinness.
It might have also been a Guinness World Record.
It could have been. I don't know.
Because there was
he had
another
too much.
record that was broken.
Oh, what was that?
That was the most, the most fans to travel internationally for a I think sporting event.
Is it 40,000 or 60,000?
It was like 39 and
39?
some change or
Okay.
something like that.
I don't know about a sporting event. I mean, there's a soccer fans
Well,
a
to
lot
travel
there.
to travel internationally.
The World Cup.
That's true.
We're talking about sports.
Ooh. I'm
don't-
pretty sure people in Ireland would actually prefer soccer.
I love soccer. I'm just joking. No.
We're not trying to mess up with the
No.
real football fans, the real football. But I mean, it was a cool game.
Yeah,
I love the
no,
fact that
100%.
they were playing over there. I mean, you're going to see more and more American football influence over in Europe right now, just with the NFL
sure.
expanding out there and stuff like that, and building some of their more training camps and doing other things.
The Euro League is back.
So it's they're trying to bring it back at least. So, but I think we're gonna to kind of start our conversation about this upcoming weekend. I think we're gonna go into some upset alerts. Like originally we were just gonna look at one, but I think we've actually got a couple that we can talk about. We got the time to do so too, which is great. So the first upset alert, and I think it's the biggest one that we're going to be dealing with, is going to be Clemson versus Duke. I think Duke is poised to take home a W there. You're playing at home, which is great. It gives them a nice little advantage. They're returning a lot of their production from last year, which is good. They were a really solid team last year. They were a tough team to beat, even on the road. And Clemson is kind of restructuring under Garrett Riley from an offensive standpoint. I heard someone make a comment that people need to remember that Cade Klubnik was a Texas quarterback. So
Right.
Garrett Riley's just running a Texas style offense that he's used to playing. So he's just going back to what he used to play in high school, which is a fair point. The issue is how does the rest of that team adapt
Right.
to that? Because one of Clemson's issues really wasn't the QB play; it was the receiver play. And to be able to do that, like wide out, like air raid almost type, up tempo offense, you need some receivers that are on point, and they've got Selden, and that's pretty much it.
Yeah, I mean it's really easy to say. Yeah, I mean, listen, you're gonna win or lose. You're gonna make or break a season with a quarterback.
Yeah,
However, if the quarterback knows the system but nobody else does,
yeah,
good luck.
exactly. So, what are your thoughts, Dennis?
No, I mean, I totally agree with that, especially if only one person knows the system. It's better to be the other way around. People can adjust to that. But I really feel that, Riley Leonard definitely, the dude could ball.
Oh, yeah.
He could throw, he can run, he could do a little bit of everything. And so I feel like that's where Clemson's going to have some danger, where if you easily overlook that, or if you feel too heavy in the box, at the end of the day, if you have at least a couple of decent receivers, you only need a couple of big plays.
True.
You don't need
To swing momentum
Exactly.
your way. Yeah,
That's the one thing about college football. Momentum is the key of everything.
exactly. And I think if Duke can lock it down, they're going to be very difficult to deal with. From I don't think Clemson's team, and I think we saw some of that in the Orange Bowl, they're not really designed to come back from behind.
No.
Now, the new offensive style of Garrett Riley may be better suited for that, provided they can fire on all cylinders. But that's all dependent on whether or not they can fire on all cylinders. And Duke does have a pretty decent defense too. Last I checked, so they have to.
Most of their players are coming back, right, from their defense.
Yeah, and so that's what I'm saying. They're a dangerous team to play, and I'm not saying that Clemson's taking that game lightly. I think they're going to go into it expecting to have a dogfight. I don't think they're going into it expecting to just win because they're Clemson, and which is good. I think that it's going to make for a great matchup. I'm glad that it's a Monday night, right? So it's not competing with any other games, so which is awesome. So it's just it just makes it feel more special. But the thing is, if Duke does clinch that win, then the ACC really could be up for grabs.
Up. It definitely opens up.
Yeah,
Like
you could see Miami win the ACC.
I mean,
That's
still
a lot of things have to happen. A lot of things have to happen.
Listen. That's just my spicy take.
Yeah.
I mean, hey, but we've also talked about that LSU FSU game, which is one of the biggest games I think
for
week one.
Oh yeah,
biggest game.
Yeah,
and if LSU beats FSU,
yep.
and Duke beats Clemson, you've got two of the top teams in that ACC that are now 0-1.
Yep.
And realistically, I mean that's
and
for grabs.
And we'll talk more about this in a second, and when we get into like game of the week and stuff like that. But like that, just to hit on that point, the both of them going in 0-1, FSU's looks a lot less worse because it's not in conference.
Right.
Whereas having a loss in conference is significantly worse from a standpoint of where if you're trying to get to the ACC championship, which let's be real, the only way you're going to ever even potentially contend in the college football playoffs is to be the ACC champion.
Right.
And that's ACC champion without a loss.
Right.
Because Clemson had losses last year and definitely couldn't get in.
Yeah, they had I believe they had 3 losses, right?
2. Well, three at the end of the season after. Because they lost to
I was
Tennessee.
trying to give Tennessee some credit.
Yeah, yes, it was 11-3, but essentially, that's our big upset for the weekend. But I think you guys had some other ones too that were really really interesting.
Yeah. Actually, I feel like a potential upset is actually be the Colorado versus TCU. Like, don't get me wrong. I know TCU
Optimus Prime.
He's rolling out.
Even with Coach Prime and everything, rolling out with his entire team, like you're saying. I feel like there's so much hype going on there. It's gonna be obviously it's gonna be an away game, I believe, for them.
Yeah.
But I feel like with so much hype, so much talent, and so much of that raw talent that's there, I wouldn't be surprised if Colorado pulled it off with a win.
That's fair.
And TCU, don't get me wrong, still has a great team coming back. They have their original quarterback that was from last year, that was supposed to start last year, actually healthy and playing this year too. So it should be a very interesting game that I feel like TCU, there's no way possible they're going to overlook that because of so much hype coming from Colorado.
True.
And Colorado is a very intriguing team this year.
Yeah.
I mean,
one to watch for sure.
Yeah, it's kind of one of those like I mean, you've got
you love him or you hate him.
Well, you love him or you hate him, but also Prime. It's like he did so many good things at Jackson State.
Yeah.
And so he's pulling a lot of his players from Jackson State. So you're going to have a little bit more continuity than you normally would for a new coach like that. Again, love him or hate him. I could literally see it going either way.
Yeah.
That he comes in and he just, from start to finish, he takes his Colorado team and maybe he gets to a bowl game his first year. Maybe he wins some of these games that you're like, man. Or I can see him coming in and him talking a lot and them doing nothing. So it's very...
Yeah, I genuinely feel like it can go either way. But I feel like the end of realistic, like if Colorado as a whole, if they win more than 4 games, I feel like that's the biggest win you could possibly have. You're a 1-win team last year.
Right.
But if you're able to beat TCU and say you only have 4 wins the rest of the year, I feel like that's a win. You beat a top 25 team, a very good team at that.
Yeah.
and that'll look great for recruiting. You'll start seeing some
Oh, yeah.
recruits start swinging there. A lot of recommits, a
yeah.
lot of people that are going to start
No
looking at
problem at
Colorado.
all.
Well, and the other side of that entire coin too is that sets up TCU for a really sad season.
Mm-hmm.
Like
Yeah.
that probably is going to be that would be a downward fall for them. You might see them spiral a little bit.
It'd be
I would
very
say-
easy to.
You
Yeah.
see the transfer open up already in week 1.
They'd start spiraling kind of like Deion Sanders did when he lost those toes.
Oh, man.
Too soon?
Yeah.
Just a little bit, just a little too soon.
Sorry.
I haven't called
it's,
yet, man.
it's all good. But what was your like upset alert for this weekend?
So my upset alert, and mine kind of coincides with my game of the week because
Okay.
I think that it's UNC versus South Carolina.
Okay.
So North Carolina, South Carolina, the little border battle of the borders is I think what they call it.
Yeah.
Obviously we've got Drake May. He's coming in. He's regarded
Potential Heisman contender.
potential Heisman, probably one of the top 2 or 3 quarterbacks that's going to be talked about this year. He's going to be hoping his offensive line holds up a little bit better than they did last year. He's got some new receivers to work in after losing Josh Downs last year. They've got an interesting kind of story going. But then you've got South Carolina. South Carolina was a very interesting team last year. They had some really big losses,
Some pretty big wins, too.
they had some
massive
games
blowouts.
that they looked
Wasn't
like
a
they were giving
blowout.
up, and then
It's
they
like
had
60
some.
points.
The
Wasn't
the
60
end of the
points.
season they beat two of the top 10 teams.
Yeah.
So now
they did.
realistically they beat Tennessee.
Yep.
They beat them pretty good.
Yep.
But that was also the game that
Beat 'em
Hendon
down.
Hooker
Yeah.
went out in the fourth quarter, beginning of the fourth, end of the third.
Yeah, it was something like that. It
So
was-
little bit of
they
amnesia
were
there, huh?
down by a couple touchdowns at the point, but still,
yeah, you got your
I have to give you a little bit of credit. Hooker didn't play the whole game.
Nope.
And then they came and edged Clemson out by 1.
Mhm.
And then realistically, you got they lost to Notre Dame, I think, in the Gator
Yeah,
Bowl.
barely.
Barely. It
45
was-
to 38.
Yeah. It was like a touchdown.
Yeah.
So if they can take that momentum
Mhm.
and kind of keep it going this year, not to mention you got Spencer Rattler,
Mhm.
who's a great quarterback in his own right. I mean,
definitely.
I would almost put him in that top 5 of the quarterbacks
Sure.
this year. I
Yeah.
think easily he could be there
He's veteran
If he
enough.
builds momentum, I feel like he really can.
if he gets
Yeah.
that momentum.
Mhm.
And I think that them being out of the top 25
Mhm.
is going to put a little bit of a fire underneath them.
Yeah.
And kind of be like, hey, we've got to prove ourselves now. What we
Mhm.
did last year.
Yep.
I think that this could be one that South Carolina kind of gets the win over North Carolina.
I can agree with that honestly. Like I see South Carolina as I think we mentioned. I don't know if it was last week or the week before, but like I just see South Carolina being a team that really could just provide a lot of very odd upsets this year.
Mhm.
Again, I don't foresee them going very high into the top 25. Like they might be able to grace the top 25 for a week or two. For
The team comes
but-
in and out every week.
yeah, they're but they're one of those teams that it's because they're just providing an upset.
Right.
I think they lost too many key players in defense and offense to be that consistent threat. But they did make the adjustments on the offensive side to like what they looked like at the end of the year.
Right.
The reason why they were inconsistent throughout last year and changed the second or third week from the end of the season was because they made some adjustments on the offensive side.
Right.
And those adjustments, from what I understand, are staying in effect going into this next season with the new OC and stuff like that, which is great. That stuff is exactly what you want to see. And again, I welcome the competition because I'd love to see them up high on their horse and going high at it, just going at it like crazy. And like if they're coming into Neyland undefeated, it's great because we can knock them off their horse. That's what I want to see.
I mean, if UT doesn't beat them this year, then it's going to be pretty embarrassing back-to-back losses like that.
That just means that Beamer's got Heupel's number. Which
Right.
Yeah.
He would be the only coach aside from Kirby Smart that's got Heupel's number. And I don't even know if Kirby Smart's really got Heupel's number too much, but like it's just one of those things like because even Georgia couldn't beat us that bad. So, there are things that there are other factors for that game, and that we could get into that are more like, the rumor mill suggests.
Yeah.
But that was last season.
Right.
And so this season is what we're looking ahead towards.
Focus on the future.
That's right. So you mentioned or hinted at like that's your game of the week, and that's going to be a fun one to watch. That's on Saturday, right?
It is.
So that's going to be a ton of fun to watch. Even just watching the highlights is going to be fun to go back and watch those. Because again, if Radler gets into it, him and May, like it's going to be such a fun like QB battle.
Oh yeah,
like such a fun QB battle to watch. And I think Dennis, your game of the week is also your upset alert, right?
Yeah, actually, that's my alert right there.
Yep.
Yeah, actually, that's the one I went with. Yeah.
Yeah. So, that's going to be a fun one to watch. I just want to see it just because I want to see how Colorado's going to play.
Right.
Because I don't really care about TCU. I'm just going to be honest.
Yeah.
After really getting demolished by UGA in the national championship and having this team completely step backwards because of the fact that you've lost some of your good players.
They did beat somebody in the playoffs, though, didn't they?
They did beat somebody.
Who
was it?
Muck-Fishigan? Something like that.
It could have been. It could have been them. Yes,
sounds about right.
Yeah,
that's yes.
Okay.
That it could have been them. Yeah.
I've slept since then, but I'm pretty sure it was.
Yeah, it was something like that.
That team up north.
Yeah, some hardball guy or something. I don't know. Whatever. He's not going to be coaching for the first 3 games. That's because those games really matter.
Right.
It sets the tone for the season, man.
It really does set the tone for the season. It would be hilarious if Michigan lost a game during the first 3 games of the season. They're not playing anybody.
I was about to say, let's see.
Yeah, it's like
East Carolina.
Yeah, East Carolina.
Well,
yeah.
hold on.
Pull it up.
East Carolina, UNLV, and Bowling Green.
Oh man, that Bowling Green though. I mean, just kidding.
They've got a lot of returning starters.
They got so many returning starters.
They did lose to Appalachian State, one day ago. So
it's possible. Again, anything's possible.
It's college football.
You got to play the game. You got to play the game, and their OC is going to be out too, right? Is it their OC?
Their OC is going to be out, and one of the interesting things, and this is something that you'll only hear here. I had some breaking news on Michigan. Okay.
Yeah.
So. I think that it's 70 players that you can dress every week, right?
Sure.
Yeah,
okay.
Right, yeah.
So from what I've heard, Michigan has decided, their coaches have decided that they're only going to be dressing 60 players this week.
Huh.
So they're gonna make the other 10 dress themselves. So
I didn't know they were playing Northwestern.
It's a little reminiscent of some Penn State stuff too.
Yeah.
What's going on with the Big Ten and the dressing of them?
I don't know. Can we come to the SEC?
Yeah, let's go and talk about the SEC real quick. So we got a really big SEC matchup this weekend. Got LSU and FSU. We talked about that a little bit, and that's just going to be that's my game of the week.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's I selfishly picked the most impressive game of the week for sure. The 2 major top dogs. But you know what?
The scraps for everybody.
Yeah,
else.
that's exactly right. But I also represent just the SEC fan base, and so I get to pick the best SEC team playing that weekend, and just
we'll give it to you.
Hey, so it's going to be the best SEC game, I should say. The best SEC team is playing just the day before, and they're just playing a measly old Virginia team. So,
upset alert!
Upset alert!
I mean, there's a lot of things going on to that game. I'm just saying, and beyond just players.
There are. But the upset would be Tennessee beating them so bad they have deducting points from Virginia's rest of the season. Yeah, the scoreboard can't even keep up.
You're starting this game -4.
What happened? Well, we just lost by 300 points to Tennessee. No. So FSU, LSU, I think is going to be a great game. You got 2 arguably really elite teams coming back to play each other. One's really coming back for a vengeance. LSU is out for blood.
Yeah,
they see themselves capturing the entire SEC this year, and I think they have a good road for it. Like I wouldn't be surprised to see them in the playoffs. And I can definitely see them in the SEC championship. But I think this will be a really good test to see like their strength. Especially playing against arguably the strongest opponent in the ACC, which we can scoff all day long about how weak the ACC is in comparison to SEC or Big Ten or whatnot, or even the Big 12.
Right.
But FSU did show themselves to be somewhat of a powerhouse last year, and so they deserve respect. And I personally feel like they were more shafted by the ACC championship and stuff like that. They should have been there more than Clemson. They
Agreed.
deserve to be there more than Clemson. But it's I think that if they come out of that still losing to LSU, I still feel like they're going to be major contenders for the ACC and even the playoffs. I think that if Clemson loses, I think that they're basically out of both.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I think personally,
Yeah.
LSU loses, they're done for. I mean,
Yeah,
if LSU, but if I would say they're not going to get to the national championship.
No.
Or the playoffs. I don't know why I have a hard time saying the playoffs now. It's too new. But
It's too new.
They're not going to get to the playoffs, and they probably won't even get to the SEC championship. Florida State, on the other hand, if they lose, I think that they easily could get to the ACC championship still. But I think a national championship is off the table.
They might not have the talent for it at that point.
Well, at that point, you're playing from down. You're 0-1. You have to run the table.
Yeah.
100% an ACC team. If it's one loss, especially at the beginning of the year, they're not going to be allowed another loss. So I mean, I think that LSU, they've got the talent, but they're going to be facing a team. I mean, Florida State has to understand that this game is big, probably bigger for Florida State than it is LSU. Well,
Yeah.
I would actually go with that just because I'm the opposite of basically kind of what both of you guys are saying. I feel like LSU has actually, I mean, don't get me wrong, they should win this game. I do believe that they should. But Florida State, I believe, has more to lose in this game. Because exactly how you guys are both saying, ACC being a weak conference and everything like that, if Florida State loses, they can win the conference, but doesn't mean they're going to even make it to the playoffs. LSU can lose this game and beat out some really tough teams in the SEC.
it's true.
Yeah.
And still make it not only to the SEC championship, but to the playoffs, though.
Yeah.
So, like,
LSU
the
has
difference of strength of conference, I feel like plays a toll in that.
LSU has a better chance of losing to FSU and potentially losing to someone else and being the first two-loss team into the playoffs. Because all it takes is for them to go into Bama and beat Bama at Tuscaloosa, get to the SEC championship and win there too.
Yeah, but I mean, realistically, I'm looking through their schedule right now. You got Florida State, Grambling State, Mississippi State. Mississippi is going to be another team that they should beat, but might. There might be an upset there. Alabama, and then last game of the year, Texas A&M.
Yep.
I feel like you're kind of overlooking Ole Miss, though. Like, Ole Miss is another one that you're kind of overlooking.
I mean,
and I feel like Auburn, honestly, is going to probably turn up a little bit. I don't think they're unranked right now, but
I'm not saying that that there's no chance, that Ole Miss has no chance. I'm saying when you look at the games that they should win, I'm looking at Mississippi State and going.
I feel like the only one that's not like a should win or like a guarantee win was the Alabama game, personally.
For sure.
But I feel like if they were to lose to only Alabama, say, but they blow out every single other team, especially every other ranked team, it's going to be hard to ignore them.
Right. Yeah, it'll be hard to ignore.
It'll be hard to ignore them, but they probably at that point, if they lose to Alabama, they're probably not vying for the West.
No.
Which means they're not going to be playing for their college football playoffs.
Right.
Like that. There's no way they would get in as a 2-loss team, losing to the potential champion of the SEC.
Right.
Yeah.
So
all that to say.
Yeah.
There's a lot of pressure going into this week one, which I think is what makes it so amazing.
It's
and
so much
such
fun.
A great game.
Oh yeah.
To be on week one.
Oh yeah. Exactly. I mean, the most important game this weekend is definitely going to be Tennessee versus Vanderbilt. Or Virginia, Tennessee versus Virginia. We're not playing Vanderbilt. That's the end of the season. It feels like Vanderbilt. It feels like Vanderbilt because one, it's similar like logos, and then on top of that, it's also in Nashville, which is a neutral site game. Totally not a home game.
There are no UT fans in Nashville.
No, none at all.
I've never
I'm
seen
not one of them.
Never seen one in my life.
Yeah, there's none of us here. And actually, Dennis and I are going to be going to that game. It's going to be a ton of fun. Luke, you just decided not to be cool and you just had to work or something. It was crazy.
Working kids.
Yeah, gee whiz. Responsibility.
Why are you making your kids work? Child labor?
Child
come on.
Start them young.
Got to teach him that responsibility.
Rent is going up every day.
That's right.
I feel you on that.
I do draw the line, no coal mines.
Fair enough.
That's my line.
That's fair enough. What about cobalt mines?
Don't know enough about them.
Okay, fair enough. I mean, they're not here.
But
They're
probably
over
not.
they're in like Congo or something like that.
No, I think the transportation fees might be a little too much.
Yeah, your your commute be a little crazy. Does the bus come and pick them up for that?
So let me go ahead and put a disclaimer here. I don't make my kids work. All right, let's
Maybe just basic house chores.
house chores. Yeah,
House chores.
Mow the lawn, have a lemonade stand, bring in the money to pay.
there you go. But I think the other game that we talked about
Yeah. Oh
And-
yeah.
is Florida Utah.
Yeah, that's a big one this weekend.
yes.
So
Yes.
another
That's on Thursday
interesting
night.
game. One that I think you had kicked around being a upset alert,
I
potential upset alert.
I was saying it's not going to be one.
Oh, okay.
I don't think it will. I
Okay.
think that there's a lot of Florida fans that are really high on Florida,
Okay.
and I think I agree with some of the pundits that are saying that if Cam Rising isn't playing, then it very much easily could be Florida's game to lose.
100%.
But Utah is returning a lot of their defensive production. They have a good chunk of their offensive production coming back, and that's a team that kind of ran the Pac-12 last year.
Yeah.
The past 2 years.
Well, true. That's the
Yeah.
past 2 years. And so it's really hard for me to vote against them, even
Yep.
if Cam Rising's not playing. And the thing is, we don't know
Right.
because they're holding that close to the chest right now. And so it's just, which is fine. I agree with that move so that
Yep.
Florida can't properly prepare. And so could it be an upset? Yeah, sure. Because
Okay.
Florida does have enough depth at defense. Their deep depth at offense is sketchy, and their quarterback situation. After seeing his production last year, I don't believe that Graham Mertz is going to do much this year.
Yeah. I mean, he might surprise us. Weirder
yeah.
things have happened.
It's true.
So
I don't know about Billy Napier's ability to develop quarterbacks. So, and he might have brought some guys in that are really good at developing quarterbacks, and that's all that matters. So, like again, it's but it's one of those things. Like I think that Florida, a lot of things have to go right for Florida to win that game, and only like one or two things have to go wrong for Utah to lose that game.
Right.
Just UT.
It's the first two letters, past
It's
two.
just, it just
It's
really
on the
just
brain.
Yeah.
it's on the brain. Anyways, what do you guys think about the game?
I think it's actually going to be a really good game.
Yeah.
I also believe that Utah is going to come out, honestly, probably a pretty easy win. I feel like, honestly, they might win even by 2 touchdowns. I don't think it'll be much bigger past 3.
Yeah.
Like, if I had to do like an over-under, I would say probably under 20 points.
Fair enough. Yeah.
I think like you said, I think it kind of hinges on Rising.
Yeah.
Is he going to play? Is he not? Again, smart move, a little gamesmanship
Yeah.
of not, releasing what's going on. I like it.
It's like you don't know who your quarterback is, like Ohio State, for example.
We know.
Well, we know
So,
now.
like,
we
today-
know now.
We know now, but I
We'll
bet you
get
this is
to
going
it.
to change.
We'll get to it.
Yeah.
But just a little bit of gamesmanship, and if Cam Rising, I'm with you though. I think Utah is going to win, and I would say it's one of those things where if Cam Rising plays, I'm saying 2 touchdowns.
Yeah.
If he doesn't play, I'm going more like the, 6.5.
Yeah.
6.5 point. I'm getting all like they're going to win by a touchdown.
Yeah.
So I think it's a touchdown difference, but I have Utah winning either way.
Yeah. I agree. I think it's going to be a close game. I don't unless Utah gets some kind of stride like they did against USC last year in
Right.
the Pac-12 championship, which could happen. And if that can that game turns ugly real fast.
Oh, definitely.
And since they are playing at home, that does help Utah's case for multiple reasons. You just higher elevation. These
Yeah.
Florida players are not used to playing in higher elevation, and they're used to playing in the swamp, guys.
Right.
So,
Well, and you saw some of that going to a different sport in the basketball, the NBA championship this year.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
So Denver Nuggets winning against I don't even remember who they played,
that
but
I don't know.
either way,
I don't follow the NBA.
the Heat. That's right.
Florida, so-
Yeah,
Hey,
Florida. Okay.
yeah, Miami Heat. There we go.
So you just heard them talking about that elevation, and when you get up there, you breathe different.
Yep,
So-
you breathe different. The ball bounces different.
Mhm.
Stuff like that. So
That is very true. The ball, everything becomes very different here. So it'll be interesting. I don't know how much Gatorade they'll be able to kind of drink to be able to kind of help them out with that. But
listen, Gatorade is not the Florida Gators super juice. It's not their I don't know if.
I'm just. Didn't it come from there?
Oh, I mean, I guess we could have.
It did come from there.
That's your homework for this week.
Yeah.
Find out. All right.
Yeah.
I just remember the old Gatorade commercials, the tight end like catching the touchdown in the back. And it's like, by a quarter of an inch, if he didn't drink Gatorade, this catch would never have happened.
I mean, I grew up in like Central Florida, and I don't remember like ever seeing just like Gatorade, fall off the trees or like being harvested somewhere.
I was gonna say like, Michael, what part of Florida?
The Gators brought it up.
Yeah,
to
the
you
Gators bring it up. It's their aid to us. They come and bring it out of the swamps with it in their jaws. Anyway, so we've got some other news from that's just. I mean, the past couple of days have been pretty spicy. But just from everything from like Arizona State, giving themselves that bowl ban. Whew. Man, that's going to be
the bowl that they weren't going to make anyway.
They're really sacrificial for them.
Like they're going to be hurting when it comes to recruiting. I'm just saying.
I mean,
and for my Buckeyes, we've chosen a starter. I'm not going to say that we have chosen our starter, but Kyle McCord's going to be starting the game against Indiana, and Devin Brown will definitely get reps. I think I was talking to Dennis earlier before we started, and I think this is going to be one of those, you're going to get 3, go in there 3 times. Yeah. And then we'll go to the next quarterback, go in there 3 times, and we'll just kind of bounce back and forth. I think Indiana's the team that's only won 2 Big Ten games in the last 2 years. So I think it's again, you never want to overlook the first game because those are.
It sets the tone, especially for the whole team.
It sets the tone. Position. It sets the tone. It's the first game. Everybody's coming to play. Everybody thinks that they have a chance to do something that nobody's ever seen. But it's a good game to kind of get 2 quarterbacks in. So we'll see what happens there. But
well, it's going to be interesting. Like all of the different teams that are like kind of holding back their rosters. I mean, Alabama today, I think it was today, they announced that they are going to be holding back their roster. Yeah. And their depth chart.
I think that's their entire depth chart.
Yeah.
Not even just their quarterback, the entire one.
The entire depth chart. Now, I've heard from some people in the know that Milroe will be playing as the starter. But again, if they're doing the grounded, like just like that ground and pound kind of offensive style, that kind of murder ball kind of style that they're supposedly going back to, Milroe's the obvious choice anyways.
Right.
For that style of football. But it'll be interesting to see what Alabama does. But it's weird because Alabama's not really playing anybody this weekend, so it's like why they're holding back their depth chart now.
Right. I think for next week for Texas. That's like they don't want the game plan to kind of come out too soon.
I get that. Yeah. Like it's like, but eventually people are just gonna see it.
They're gonna figure it out
because you're gonna see 4th string play this upcoming week.
You want a little mystery. I'm just saying.
Well, you don't think Middle Tennessee's gonna?
Hey man,
they beat Miami.
That's true. There could be that could be our upset alert, our real upset alert.
Yeah. That'll be then the conversation.
How did we miss
it?
Is
Nick Saban going to retire?
Well, if Middle Tennessee, if MTSU beats Alabama, Saban might not retire. He might actually get ousted. That's going to be one of those, like, you don't lose to Austin Peay. You don't lose to MTSU. But actually just, that's an interesting thing you brought up, though. Like, I was mentioning this in the chat earlier, like I think it was yesterday. It's like 3 Tennessee, like just like Division II schools are playing against top 15 teams this upcoming weekend. Like UT Martin is playing against Georgia, and then you've got MTSU playing Alabama. Again, two top 4 teams that are playing against. I mean, again, I'm not trying to dog on them, but like. Not
lower tier.
Yeah, lower tier cupcake teams.
Yeah.
And granted, UT Martin can give somewhat of a fight. They know how to play. They know how to play hard. So does MTSU. They've got some good game. They've got a decent coach, so they understand how to game plan well. But they just don't have the depth to deal with either one of those teams. And then you got TCU. TSU, not TCU. My goodness, I'm just really messing up today. But yeah, TSU playing against Notre Dame, which is just a weird Like why is everybody trying to beat up on Tennessee teams?
I was just thinking like Notre Dame wise, I'm like, y'all not in the conference. Yeah, I get it. You guys play ACC teams, but this is why you guys are hyped so much. I don't think you guys are really worth their talent, and you guys literally have to play teams that almost any other team would win.
Hey, listen, if you're going to burst the Notre Dame fans' bubbles, you got to tell them and warn them before you do it.
I'm sorry. I'll go ahead and ask for forgiveness later. Like, I feel like I'm Catholic. This is how it works. I know.
Well, I guess you at least are aligned with the Notre Dame's get that way. You know, the Fighting Irish that way.
Yeah.
But is there any other news that we had for this? You know,
I mean, the only other thing that I found, there was something that we were sharing on our chat about the top what were they, the top rivalries in it was a while back, the top riveries in college football, and it talked about some Auburn, Alabama, and some Michigan, Ohio State, and Navy, Army, and then it was what was it, Georgia and the
it's like the Athens County Jail,
right? And so I was looking through some Big Ten news, and we had a Nebraska tight end who was arrested on burglary charges. He apparently robbed a vape shop.
Hold on. This doesn't happen to be the tight end that came from Georgia.
This happens to be the tight end that came
my
from Georgia.
Goodness.
Now he won
coincidence.
2 national championships with Georgia.
Go ahead, sound it
Georgia.
Out. Sound it out.
No,
it's okay.
Those two-syllable words.
It's good to know that I'm not the only one having speaking problems.
But yeah,
tonight.
he was carrying a bag that had $1,600 in vape products. But yeah, this is the guy. He came from Georgia. Won 2 national championships.
He's like,
Transferred
already beat the Georgia prison system in Athens. Let me go to Nebraska.
Right. I've heard they're a little more lenient there. But so I thought it was pretty funny because I'm looking at it. I'm like, man, what is going on here? Like, you got Matt Rule first year. You know, you'd think he'd kind of come in with a little bit more of an iron fist and be like, hey, we're changing the culture. We're going to change this to a winning culture. I'm like, you already got guys getting arrested. Start reading it. And I'm like, oh,
he's a Georgia guy.
Transfer from Georgia. Like,
I mean, and I get it. Like people that are close to Georgia and close to that program, like are saying that there's not really as much of a culture problem as it seems or whatnot. But I'm like, but you're really the only major program that was making news in the wrong way over the past off season. Like you have
Urban Meyer was a saint.
I mean, there you go. But it's just like it does speak to something, you know. And it shows like there's some kind of, and again, I don't know what kind of poison fruit it was. It literally could have been someone that's not even at Georgia anymore. That was the poison fruit. I don't know what it is. And Kirby Smart's weeded it out, and he's not part of the problem, and his coaching staff's not part of the problem.
For sure.
But it is very telling that these championship teams have had so many people with some character problems on them.
Right.
And again, if we see some of that this year, because again, if Georgia is not as winning as people are expecting them to be this year, if they lose a couple games, and I think I've gone on record saying like if Georgia loses one game, they shouldn't be allowed to play in the playoffs because their schedule is so easy. Their only tough game is Tennessee at Neyland.
Right.
That's it. And so like that should just, if they lose to Tennessee, that should be an automatic disqualification. Just because like you
too easy.
You can't win 2 national.
You can literally sleep through almost the entire season.
Yeah, you can't win 2 national championships and have such a cupcake schedule. And I get like people are like, well, you know, the SEC asked them to reschedule their Oklahoma game this year because of next year and so on and so forth. I'm like,
well, TCU's playing Colorado.
Right.
And they're going to play together next year again. And they
again,
played last year, so it's like, what's the difference?
Well, it's like it wasn't Georgia's decision. It wasn't Oklahoma's decision to change that. It was SEC's decision to change that. But like just you supplanted that with, I think, UT Martin. Like change it to somebody else that matters.
Find
like
something different.
Change it to Michigan. Make it a game that's worthwhile.
And you can only
at least
play
take Vanderbilt.
You can only play the teams on your schedule, but with you, like you have some say in who you're going to play there.
Yeah, and those things are decided years in advance, and I get that, and it's going to be less of the case with the new SEC stuff going forward. But it's one of those things I just don't. I'm curious to see where Georgia really lands at the end of the year, and how their team handles, especially if they do lose.
Right.
Like because this is a team that's younger that's not used to their team losing.
Right.
And so it'll be interesting to see how they handle that, how mature they are about it. And I know Kirby Smart's going to be mature about it because he's a great coach.
He is.
Phenomenal coach, and he respects his opponents. That's one of the reasons why he wins, because he does respect his opponents. But it's one of those things that he knows he's got a young team, and he's got a offensive coordinator that I personally don't. I'm not sold on. I think Mike Bobo is.
He's so.
A no.
He's. You could also say a bozo, but he's one of those people that like it's 3rd and 15 and he'll run the ball for
Right.
2 yards.
You got to surprise them. Like my old high school coach. You got to do the unexpected. 3 and 20, running down the middle, do a draw, running back. What?
Yeah.
Why are we doing this?
And that's what he does. And so like I get it. Like he might have changed and stuff like that. But like when they switched from him to Monken. That changeover, I think that was a change. It might have been something before that, but they like Monken added an additional 10 points per game for them, went from 30 to 40. Like you're probably going to be dropping back down to 30 points per game if you're lucky,
Right?
Because if you're running a more run heavy offense, you've got SEC teams that you're going to be playing against that have really good run defenses. Missouri being one of them.
Yeah.
They had a top 15 run defense last year. Actually, they had a top 15 defense last year.
Yeah, they had a really good defense.
And and Tennessee's only real success against them was in the air. And I'm not saying that Beck is not going to do well. I think he's going to do well. He's got a decent receiver core. But Georgia, as I think it was Josh Pate that said earlier this week, he's like, I have yet to see a Georgia team with a receiver that's over 1,000 yards. They haven't found that receiver yet, and it's because they're not as good at pinpointing like who they're not as good at finding their Hyatt or their Marvin Harrison Jr. That's not what their offensive play style has ever been.
Right.
So figuring that out, maybe back in the Mark Richt days they were better at that, but it's
couldn't get to the championship. Couldn't win the big game.
Just choked every time.
Right.
It's okay. I understand.
I kind of do too.
Anyways, well, you guys have any other notes for tonight before we sign off? Oh, no, just you're signing off. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, thanks again for joining us for this week's Tailgate. Come back next week as we recap week 1 and look at what we got for week 2.